At exactly 7:47 p.m., phones buzzed across the ballroom. And right as her father raised a glass, Morgan dropped the legal deed reinstating the co-founder they tried to erase her mother. The company they built without her name now bore hers in steel. Ever watch someone turn humiliation into justice in front of everyone who doubted them? Drop your thoughts. This one redefines legacy. They told me to sit with the dog. I designed this entire building, but apparently I wasn't VIP enough to warrant a chair inside. Morgan adjusted the strap of her black velvet dress as she stepped out onto the back lawn, her heels sinking slightly into the grass. A light October breeze nipped at her skin, carrying the scent of hydrangeas, cold champagne, and lavender polish. The glow from the chandeliers inside the landmark event hall poured through the tall arched windows, diffusing across the glass like honey. No one turned to look as she passed the French doors. No one called her name. She made her way to the only table without a floral centerpiece or a nameplate, the one tucked beside the lawn's edge, closest to the wrought iron fence and the hedge wall. A Labrador, familiar and somehow comforting, lifted his head and wagged his tail twice in recognition. "Milo," she whispered, letting her fingers graze behind his ear. She had picked every line of this building. The rooftop curve that mirrored the Charles River, the imported Verona stone tiles, the angled ceiling to catch sunset light for photographs like the one being taken right now of her father, standing beneath a golden chandelier, laughing with a glass of Perrier Jouet in one hand. Morgan took her seat beside the dog. No chair for her inside. Jenna Kim passed in the distance, clipboard hugged tight to her chest. Their eyes almost met, then didn't. Inside, the music faded. Benjamin Hale stepped up to the podium with the ease of someone who'd never had to build anything from scratch. "Tonight, we celebrate the man who dreamed bigger than anyone Benjamin began. Charles Hale built this company from the ground up, and more importantly, he taught us that vision requires structure, not sentiment." Morgan's knuckles whitened as she tightened her grip on the phone in her lap. Her mother had coined that exact phrase in her architectural journal's structure, not sentiment, 2 decades ago. The screen of her phone dimmed, then brightened again. She opened the folder named Transfer Mothershares.pdf and scrolled slowly. Pages of notarized forms, email records, a scanned letter with her mother's signature. Her mother, who had died too young, who had always warned her, "Don't assume the world will remember your name just because it should." Laughter erupted inside. A champagne glass shattered, followed by polite applause. Morgan didn't look up. At 7:43, she noticed movement, a shift in energy. Mayor Rebecca Langston, tall and composed in a steel blue pantsuit, tilted her head. From across the room, her gaze cut past chandeliers and candelabras and landed squarely on Morgan. The mayor's expression was unreadable, but she didn't look away. Morgan lowered her phone and blinked, unsure. Inside, Benjamin raised his glass. "To legacy," he declared. "To vision. And to the Hale family, present and future." Another toast. Another applause. Then, at exactly 7:47 p.m., the mayor rose. The room quieted, a ripple of silence spreading as if someone had pulled a thread too tight. The VIP table, now minus one chair, watched as Rebecca Langston stepped down from the dais, past the head table, and exited through the tall glass doors without so much as a word. Morgan felt the shift before it fully happened. Every muscle in her back straightened, her breath held mid-rib. The mayor's heels clicked once, twice on the stone patio before stopping just beside the dog's bowl. The Labrador looked up lazily and thumped his tail. Rebecca Langston turned to Morgan, and with perfect clarity, her voice slicing through the cocktail hour chatter like a lit match, said, "I don't sit with liars. I sit with the woman who built the floor they're standing on." In February, I sat in the boardroom I helped design. They handed me a document as if I'd already agreed. I was too principled to fit their growth plan. The boardroom was colder than she remembered, not by temperature, but by intent. Walls of frosted glass sealed her in with polished white steel. The air smelled like sterilized ambition. Morgan's heels clicked once on the marble floor as she entered. Then silence swallowed the sound. Every chair was occupied. Her father, Charles, sat at the head, his fingers steepled as though offering silent prayer. Benjamin lounged 2 seats down, gaze fixed on his tablet. The legal advisor to her left nodded without warmth. She took the final seat at the oval table she once sketched on napkins during late-night brainstorms. Now it bore no trace of her. "We've circulated the proposal," Benjamin said smoothly, gesturing toward the folder before her. "It's a full growth package. Bluegate Holdings brings capital, overseas visibility, everything we've talked about." Morgan opened the folder. Her name was there on a page marked Non-Voting Class C Equity Transition Agreement. "This is a forced dilution," she said quietly. "And Bluegate's balance sheet is 30% offshore shells." Charles didn't look up. "You're reacting emotionally? I'm reacting ethically. We're not a foundation. We're a business," Benjamin replied, tapping the table. "This isn't personal." Morgan's voice didn't rise, it never needed to. "They've been sanctioned twice in the EU. Their CEO's been photographed with a known arms trafficker. I'm not emotional, I'm alert." The legal advisor cleared his throat and gently pushed the signature page toward her. "This maintains your shareholder status and spirit. The transition has already been documented in preliminary filings." Morgan scanned the page. No voting rights, no advisory access, no mentions of her role in planning the original Landmark project or the Midtown Complex or the Greystone revitalization, which won them the 2021 Civic Award. Just a sterile label, strategic legacy contributor. She closed the folder. "No," she said. Benjamin smiled faintly, tapping again on his tablet. "You're being dramatic. We'll give you time." 3 weeks later, her login to the internal system expired. Then her calendar vanished. Her design archive locked. Invitations to firm events stopped arriving. One morning, her ID badge turned red at the scanner. A security guard escorted her from the building she helped shape No Scene. No words, just the sterile clang of erasure. She didn't cry. Not even when the new leadership deck was posted online without her photo. Not even when they removed the plaque outside HQ that once read Founders Charles Hale, Elizabeth Hartman, Hale Morgan Hale. It wasn't until Jenna Kim, quiet, watchful, Jenna forwarded her a misrouted internal email that the numbness cracked. "Subject legal cleanup. Please ensure Morgan Hale's name is scrubbed from all founding materials by EOM. Check archived branding. Also confirm no mention of EH's architectural input remains in presentation decks. EH, her mother." Morgan's breath hitched as she opened the archive system remotely using an old backup key that hadn't yet been revoked. File after file gone. Photographs erased. Project sketches attributed to anonymous architect. Her mother's co-founder title replaced by a hyphen. She blinked through tears that hadn't asked permission. But at the bottom of the archive, buried under years of renamed folders and sanitized logos, there it was. Founding 1982 EH, PDF, status inactive access, restricted legal classification binding, original filing. She hovered over the file name. One click away. Her mother's voice echoed faintly in her head. "You only lose your name when you give them permission to take it." And Morgan had never signed anything. Dogs don't fake loyalty. Milo never forgot who raised him. Neither did the truth buried in this building's foundation. The string quartet inside had shifted to something older, slower a waltz that no one danced to. The night air had teeth now cold and creeping in through the seams of Morgan's coat as she sat beside Milo. He had fallen asleep against her ankle belly, rising and falling in time with the rustling leaves. She heard the click of heels before she saw her. Jenna Kim stepped onto the stone terrace, her coat barely fastened, hair swept up in a too-formal twist that had begun to unravel. "They think you'll leave quietly," Jenna said without preamble. Morgan looked up. "They're wrong." Jenna reached into the inside pocket of her blazer and pulled out a slim silver USB. She placed it on the table between them next to Morgan's untouched champagne flute. It caught the light like a blade. "My sister used to work in compliance," Jenna said. She flagged a set of anomalies in the merger docs. Bluegate's due diligence files weren't complete. And someone was cooking balance sheets. A week later, they fired her. NDA full muzzle clause. Morgan picked up the USB with 2 fingers. "What's on here, audio? Meeting recordings? Benjamin mocking your exit plan said you were a liability wrapped in nostalgia. Said even the mayor would fold if they promised her a district development deal." Morgan didn't flinch. And you, Jenna's voice cracked just a little. I watched them delete your mother. Milo shifted in his sleep, nudging Morgan's boot. Morgan leaned back slightly, the USB now warm in her palm. Why now? Because you stayed, Jenna said. Because you didn't yell. Because even out here with a dog instead of a seat, you didn't leave. Morgan almost smiled. Footsteps again. Slower this time. Measured. Mayor Rebecca Langston appeared through the archway, a single glass flute in her hand untouched. She looked down at Milo first. The dog raised his head, blinked, and then settled back into sleep, as if her presence posed no threat. The mayor glanced at Morgan, then Jenna. Whatever you plan to do, she said, you have one shot. When this breaks, you better be ready for all of it. Morgan stood. No anger, no trembling. I've been ready since February, she replied. She opened her phone, navigated to her scheduling app, and tapped through folders until she reached the media drop, a secure PDF bundle labeled Transfer Mother, shares the scan letterhead, the NDA from Jenna's sister, and one email thread titled Hale Foundation Deletion Orders. At the bottom of the screen, schedule release. What time? Jenna asked softly. Morgan glanced at the mayor. 7:47 p.m., she said. Same second you walked across the room. The mayor nodded. No ceremony, no toast. Morgan hit confirm. Nothing happened yet, but everything had changed. Jenna hesitated before reaching into her bag again. This time she handed Morgan a thick manila envelope worn at the edges. I didn't know if you already had it, she said. I found it in a forgotten drawer in the design archive. It was misfiled under Contracts Expired. But it's real. Morgan opened the envelope slowly. Inside a single legal document, original deed co-founder, Elise Hartman Hale, 1982. Untouched, stamped, legally binding. Milo shifted again and rested his chin on her foot. She didn't move. The truth had always been here, silent, heavy, undeniable. And now, finally, no longer alone. I didn't need to raise my voice, just raise the right file at the right time. The chandeliers above the ballroom glittered like ice suspended mid-fall. Hundreds of guests floated between crystal towers of champagne and velvet-clad servers, their voices bubbling with polite laughter and self-congratulation. The orchestra's strings threaded gently through the air, building toward a crescendo that no one really heard. Morgan stepped through the main doors at exactly 7:46 p.m. She moved with purpose, not haste. A fitted black coat over her shoulders, envelope in hand, expression unreadable. Heads began to turn not all at once, but like a ripple through still water. At the far end, Benjamin raised his champagne glass again, oblivious. His grin was wide rehearsed. He always toasted first. She stopped just shy of the central table at the moment the orchestra swelled, and then it happened. Phones across the room buzzed in sync. One chime, then dozens. Notifications lighting up in pockets, clutched purses, and upturned screens. Conversations faltered. The mayor stood up slowly. Her timing was perfect. Benjamin lowered his glass, confused at the sudden stillness. He glanced at his phone, then at the faces around him. Charles leaned forward, scowling. Morgan, Benjamin said sharply. What is this? A woman near the dessert station whispered. It's all over Twitter. Another is that her mother's name, Benjamin, attempted a smirk. This is fake. Fabricated. This is a stunt. Morgan didn't flinch. She stepped forward, placing the manila folder directly onto the white linen at the center of the VIP table. The silence crackled. Mayor Langston broke it first. Let her speak. Morgan looked once around the room. No trembling, no fury. Just weight anchored like stone. You toasted to a legacy, she said, voice clear but low. I just returned the original owner's name to it. She opened the file. Inside the signed founding 1982 EH PDF, the transfer mother shares and a dated reinstatement document processed legally in Massachusetts probate court 6 weeks earlier. The logo of Hale Development shimmered faintly in the watermark, but the name below it read, Hale and Daughter. Whispers surged like rising wind. One guest lifted her phone to start recording. Charles opened his mouth, then closed it. His hands shook slightly, betraying the effort to maintain composure. Benjamin leaned over the file, eyes darting. This isn't binding, he muttered, voice tight. It is, Morgan said. Legally registered, unchallenged, and backed by the Massachusetts Registry of Deeds. Your own legal team was copied on the filing. The room shifted not physically, but emotionally. Energy pivoted. What had been polite amusement became unease, and what had been silence now swelled with murmurs. Morgan looked out at them. You wanted legacy, she said, but you erased a woman who co-founded this company. A woman who poured concrete, designed every line of the first Hale project. My mother. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. From the entrance, a server rushed forward, expression pale. He bent down to Benjamin, who turned an even paler shade as the words reached him. There's press at the gates, the server whispered. And Channel 5 just went live. They built their power on paperwork. I brought my own. Midnight came quietly to downtown Boston, but Hale Development was anything but asleep. News vans lined the street in front of the tower, their cables snaking across the sidewalk like veins. Cameramen whispered behind their lenses. Reporters spoke in tight, urgent tones. The glass lobby pulsed with activity brighter than daylight. Morgan stepped through the rotating door. Alone, the echo of her heels swallowed by polished marble. For the first time in 8 months, the security guard nodded at her with recognition, not the false kind, but real, like muscle memory restored. Inside the main boardroom, the air smelled of cold coffee and adrenaline. Legal teams leaned over tablet screens, updating contracts in real time. Analysts from Blue Gate sat slouched, heads down, whispering. Jenna Kim stood by the glass wall, clipboard in hand, an earpiece glowing faintly. Morgan walked straight to the center. On every network screen, the headlines scrolled, Hale and daughter new. Legal successor announced another line, followed Morgan Hale. Holds controlling voting shares via inherited co-founding stake. In the corner of the room, Charles Hale sat frozen in front of a flurry of journalists. The camera lights bathed him in a sheen that made his discomfort glisten. He said nothing. His carefully composed image had cracked, and now the silence clung to him like defeat. Morgan didn't stop to look. Benjamin, however, did not sit. He paced. Fast. Phone clutched in one hand, the other fisting and unfisting at his side. This is fraud, he muttered. Media manipulation, manufactured consent. We'll sue. No, said a voice from the doorway. Noah Dorian stepped in his tailored coat, dusted with light rain. One of Hale Development's most powerful private investors, and now, very publicly, not on Benjamin's side. Noah crossed to the table, slid a document folder across the glass. Invoices. Communications. Financial anomalies dating back to Q3 last year. Your plan to dissolve Morgan's mother's stake wasn't just unethical. It was illegal. Benjamin looked like he might lunge. But Security Hale's own internal team was already in motion. One of them touched Benjamin lightly on the elbow. Sir, I need you to come with me, he said. Benjamin's face was red with fury, but his voice cracked as he spat. This company was never meant to be hers. Morgan didn't answer. She didn't need to. Jenna stepped beside her, nodded once. Microphones clicked to life. A press conference had materialized behind them like a tide. No podium, no fanfare, just Morgan, her voice steady and her back straight. This company began with my mother's hands, she said. They buried her name, but the foundation still remembers. And now so does the world. Flashes lit the room. Behind her, workers began removing the old gold-lettered signage from the lobby's rear wall. Hale Development came down in pieces, each letter peeled off with delicate tools as if exorcising a lie. In its place, Hale and daughter Matt's steel centered unblinking. Morgan watched until the final bolt was fixed. She didn't smile. This wasn't joy. It was alignment. A clock striking midnight and finding its chime. She turned to leave, but an assistant appeared beside her, handing over a plain envelope. There was no sender. Only a handwritten line in tight slanted script you never looked at the vault registry. Lovema Morgan held it without opening. Her heart didn't race, but her mind narrowed. Calculating. Milo, mother, memory, and now, something else left behind. Something hidden. Behind her, the name on the wall glinted under camera flashes. Ahead of her, the night wasn't over. Some seats aren't worth reclaiming. So I built a new table and rewrote the guest list. The frost clung gently to the edge of the garden as the sun melted its first layer, brushing warmth across the reborn landmark. Where once the patio had held silent humiliation, now it hummed with the energy of quiet purpose. Laughter, rustling sketch paper, the scent of cedar and citrus. The engraved gate opened slowly behind Morgan as she stepped into the new year and the new foundation she'd laid brick by brick, principle by principle. 3 months had passed since the night her family name had been restored, not through court orders or signatures, but through acknowledgement quiet and irreversible. Now the Landmark Community Center for Design and Ethics stood under the name Hale and Daughter. No longer a temple of exclusivity. The marble had been softened by reclaimed wood beams, the icy chandeliers replaced with hanging lanterns, each hand-blown by local artisans. Instead of champagne towers, there were long oak tables filled with sketch pads, mugs of tea, and ideas that didn't need permission to grow. Morgan paused at the sculpture near the garden's edge. Bronze, perfectly weathered. She was seated on the same bench, or at least its cast. Beside her, Milo in eternal stillness, tail curled. The plaque read, "Some seats you don't reclaim. You redesign them." She smiled. Inside, Jenna Kim adjusted a display of frame names, women whose designs had been scrubbed from Hale Development's archive drafters. Consultants, coders, even secretaries who once corrected blueprints in pencil margins. Now they were honored in the lobby. Jenna nodded as Morgan entered, tapping a line under one name, Elise H. Hale, co-founder, 1982. Room 1's full, Jenna said, handing her a binder, just like she'd want. Morgan opened it, her mother's weathered blueprint case. Not digitized, still graphite and paper. The spine creaked the way it used to when Elise snapped it open at their kitchen table. The first workshop had already begun. 10 young women from Queens, Oakland, Baton Rouge, and Roxbury sat around the table. Fresh sketch pads, eager eyes. Some had never set foot in a building this grand. Now they were part of shaping it. A quiet girl in the corner stood up. Talia. She handed Morgan a page, uneven lines but earnest. A sketch of a pavilion with open seating and sunken lights. I wanted it to feel like no one was waiting to be invited. Morgan looked down, then met her eyes. You just designed exactly what this place is for. The room fell into the easy hush of minds at work. From the side pocket of her coat, Morgan pulled a small envelope. She hadn't opened it until now. Inside, a simple slip from the archival vault. Her mother's signature. Dated July 1983. Elise Hale, 12% founding ownership. Non-transferable except by bloodline. There was a note paper-clipped to the file. You were always the builder. They were just borrowing space. M. Morgan closed the envelope. Her chest felt full but not heavy. Mayor Langston stood silently near the doorway watching. She offered a single nod, not needing to say a word. Morgan turned back to the table. Let's draft something they'd never approve. She said, voice warm but steady. She handed out blank sketch pads. Not rules, not requirements, just space. The kind that would never again need someone else's permission to exist. She didn't reclaim the seat they stole, she built a new table and let the light in. What they tried to erase came back louder, clearer, carved in steel and memory. Because truth, like her mother once said, ages well, and no dynasty built on lies can outrun it forever. When injustice is met with quiet resolve, justice doesn't knock, it walks right in. Sometimes all it takes is one woman who remembers and refuses to disappear.